Why do some goods have more elastic supply than others? In other words, what determines supply elasticity of a good? Well, there are three determinants. Supply is more elastic the lower the cost of additional production compared to previous production. Supply is also more elastic the longer the time frame over which supply responsiveness is measured. And lastly, supply is more elastic in local markets than in global ones. Let's take the first one of these determinants. Now compare these two sets of goods. The first set consists of Picasso painting, gold bars, petroleum. The second set consists of shoes, TV, and furniture. What is the difference between the two sets of goods? I'm sure you can spot several differences, but the relevant one here is that it is very hard and therefore expensive to increase the supply of the goods in the first set, while it is relatively easy and therefore not that expensive to increase the supply of the second set of goods. Why is it hard to increase the supply of the first set of goods? Well, there are only so many Picasso paintings in the world. Picasso is now dead, so the only way you can increase the supply of his paintings is by offering an extremely high price to the current owners of the existing paintings. And even beyond a certain quantity, even that's not possible. Similarly, the most easily accessible mines of gold and petroleum have already been tapped, and to increase gold and petroleum production further, we have to go into more inaccessible and therefore expensive sources of these natural resources. It means that the supply of these goods are limited by the facts of nature, and therefore the responsiveness of producers in increasing their supply is going to be relatively low. These goods are going to have low supply elasticity. While the second set of goods are manufactured by human beings, and human beings can increase their production at will, the resources that go into manufacturing these products are not particularly scarce or hard to get, and therefore producers can increase the supply of these goods relatively easily, and therefore these goods have high elasticity of supply. Now let's compare these two goods, toothpicks and houses. Which good do you think is going to have higher supply elasticity? The reason we expect their supply elasticities to be different is because the production of toothpicks utilize only small portion of total wood supplies, while houses utilize a huge portion of the total wood supplies. So if we try to increase house production, we might drive up the total demand for wood quite a bit, so much that the price of wood would start to rise, and that would dampen the supply response of the house builders. Toothpick producers, on the other hand, could expand their production without worrying about driving up the price of wooden supplies. Thus, toothpicks have a higher elasticity of supply than houses. Supply is also more elastic the longer the time frame over which we measure the change in quantity supplied. So let's say that the price of gasoline goes up. Will the supply response be greater within the next 1 day, or will it be greater within the next 1 year? Of course, it will be greater within the next 1 year because producers will have the opportunity to discover more sources of oil and to dig holes to extract those supplies of oil, while they can't do that within the next day. So we can say that the longer the time frame over which we measure supply responsiveness or change in quantity supplied, the more elastic our supply is going to be. The shorter the time frame, the less time we give producers to respond, the less elastic supply is going to be. Supply is also more elastic in global markets than in local ones. So where do you think that the supply responsiveness is going to be greater? In the world price of gasoline or the local market for gasoline? Okay, the world market or the local market? Well, if the price in local market goes up, producers can bring oil supplies from other localities, and therefore they can increase the supply of oil in one particular market quite a bit. But if the price of oil is rising in the global market, that is, it is rising everywhere, everyone's affected, then where are they going to bring additional oil supplies from? We don't have another planet yet where we can get oil from, and therefore the ability of producers to respond with increase in supply is going to be rather limited. So the bigger the market that we think of, the less elastic the supply is. The narrower the market we think of, the more elastic the supply is. Now let's test your understanding. Which good among these two is going to have higher supply elasticity, pencils or nuclear weapons? We don't see a lot of problem increasing the supply of pencils. The inputs that go into making pencils, wood and graphite, are easily available, and therefore pencil production can be increased not a too big of an increase in costs. Nuclear weapons, on the other hand, require supplies that are not easy to get. They would require nuclear fuel, it would require the services of nuclear engineers, okay? And so it's relatively hard to increase the supply of nuclear weapons. So the supply of nuclear weapons is going to be less elastic. How about candies and economics professors? Which supplies do you think are easier to increase? Of course, candies. Okay, economics professors. Okay, in order to be an economics professor, you need to get a PhD, which takes 5 to 6 years after your bachelor's degree to get. So if you wanted to increase the supply of economic professors, it would take you at least 6 years to be able to do that. So the supply elasticity in the meanwhile is going to be very low. On the other hand, the supply elasticity of candies is going to be relatively high.